Hi, I'm Mary. Back with the third of our three-part series about the sailboat metaphor with positive psychology. So if you haven't watched the first two videos, please go back and watch those two videos so that you know what we're talking about. This last video, we're going to be exploring the captain. So the captain represents us, and it represents us and how we interact with ourselves and with people around us. So in the metaphor, it's how the captain interacts with the sailboat, how the captain uses the sailboat. There are 4 different elements that we'll talk about as being really important in how ourselves, how we look at the world around us, how we look at ourselves. And so these four elements are represented, of course, by different things that fit into the sailboat metaphor again. So the captain is the master of the boat. We are individuals. We have autonomy. We can make decisions, choices for ourselves. But we interact with all those other elements that we talked about before: the leaks, the sails, or the strengths, our values, our different social connections, the things that are around us, perhaps weather or those events in our life that can be either positive or negative. And the captain also is how we relate to all those elements. All right, so there's 4 key elements to the captain. First one is attention, second thoughts, third motivation, and the fourth is action. So we're going to look at attention first. Attention is how and how much one focuses on a certain sailboat element. So for example, the captain can put a great deal of attention on their destination and completely ignore that there's a storm brewing on the horizon, or completely ignore that there's a huge leak in the boat and it's causing the boat to start sinking. We can extend that metaphor to our lives by looking at how we might get so caught up in an end goal that we forget to eat regularly or don't sleep as much as we should, and then cause ourselves to perhaps have a decreased immune response, get sick, not be able to finish our project. So this is, this element is all about where we are putting our attention. The second element are our thoughts. So the beliefs that we hold about a certain sailboat element. We all have thoughts. Not all of our thoughts are true. Not all of our thoughts are very helpful for us. Some of them are, certainly, but some of them are distorted. And we don't always recognize this. So if we are having a distorted thought, perhaps we are thinking about how big one of our flaws are, one of our weaknesses are, and we're focusing all of our attention on that weakness and none on our strengths. And that is caused by a thought that we have that this flaw is more important than anything else. So that's our thoughts. The next piece is motivation. So motivation talk is really about what are the reasons that we have for interacting with an element in a particular way. Our values, excuse me, our values, for example, which represent the steering wheel, our values maybe are a big motivation for us. sometimes our value or our motivation lies in other things, perhaps social connections. So really understanding what our motivations are helps us to understand why we're interacting with particular elements in the way that we do. And then the last piece to this metaphor is action. As captains, we get to make choices about how we interact with each of these elements. So, for example, if I were to see a weakness, if I were to recognize that I was not getting enough sleep, uh, I can make the choice to start going to bed earlier, or to do something else that allows me to get what my body needs. That is the last of our sailboat metaphor. If you find any of these things interesting, please contact us to find out when our next positive self-discovery class is.